In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to implement a home screen on your game. This home screen, the one we'll implement, will be very simple. It will just show the background that we already have in our game and the text and some text saying touch to start the game. And then if you touch the background, the game will start. So when are we launching this home state? We're doing that at the end of preload state. Once all the images and assets are loaded, then we launch the home state. So let's implement this home state. Home state doesn't need to have a preload method because all the preloading, as I mentioned, is already been done. So we simply need to add a create one, which gets called when this home state method is started. So we need to have a background. This .game.add.sprite, location 0, 0. The key is background. No, the key is actually backyard. That's how it's called. Let's see what we have now. See, now we have the home screen. And we need to enable input in this so that if we touch or click, the game will begin. So we enable input and then we listen for a on input down event. On input down, we add a function in here. I'm gonna just add an anonymous function, a function that doesn't have a name, and we need to pass the context as well, this, so that we can use this inside of the function. All right, and what do we do here? Well, that's very simple. We just start the game. This.state.start game state. Let's try this out. So if I touch, I'm not getting the result that I'm expecting. Let's try again. Did I type everything right? Oh yeah, it's enabled, not enable, enabled. All right, there we go. So we have our home screen. And then the game begins. We also want to have some text, so I'm going to add in the text style. It's going to be a 35 pixel Arial font. The color is going to be white. Then the location, this.game.add.text, is going to be on 30 on X. Then on Y, it's going to be this.game.world.center Y plus 200. So that will put it somewhere around here, which is where I want. The text will say touch to start. And we need to give it the style variable so that it knows how to style the font. And it's just that simple. Touch to start, you have a home screen, you have the game. What happens when you die in the game? I want to go back to the home screen and I want to show a message that says game over. So in order for us to do that, let's first add in an init method in here. And there's going to be something new in here that you didn't know. Init method can have a parameter. We'll call it message in this case. If you pass a parameter when you start a state, and there's other options you have to pass as well, but if you can pass variables and then have them in your state. So for example, from game state, I can pass in a message that says game over, and then when home state is shown again, it will say game over. So I'm going to store that in this.message, whatever message comes in. And then if there happens to be a message, which there might not be, if there's a message, then show that text as show that message. So this.game.add.text position 60, this.game.world.center Y minus 200, that's the position. The text that's going to be shown is this.message with the same style. So nothing has changed because there's no message. But now let's pass on that message. Let's go to game state and go to our game over method because we need to do some changes in there. We no longer want to make our game restart or our state restart. Instead, we want to launch the home state again. Once you launch a state, the other state is no longer active. So we're launching the home state. And we need to pass it some parameters here. The first one is if we say here true, it basically refreshes the game world. So whichever elements were in the world, it's like we restart basically. And then the second parameter, it has to do with the game cage. When you preload images, this is all put in the game cage. Do we want to empty that or do we want to keep that? We want to keep that, so we should enter false in here. And then this is where you can pass in a variable. And that variable will be recognized in here. I just called it message, but it could have been object, it could have been anything. You could have one object with multiple properties. But in this case, it's just a string. And what string is going to be, it's just going to say game over. So let's try this touch, and let's make our pet die by giving it a lot of candy. Don't try this at home. Okay, so it's dead, and after 2 seconds we are back to the start, but it says game over now, so we have our game over. If you wanted to have a custom game over state, you could just launch a different state. You could call it game over, and it could have some other behavior, some other elements. So that's all up to you. And it's important to keep this in mind, how you can pass information, because it can be not just a string, but you can also pass the score, you can also pass an object that contains a message, the score, the number of times the player has died, or the maximum health it achieved, and then that can all be shown as a high score. So you can do a lot with this. Just to summarize, because we have covered a lot, we implemented our home screen, which is shown at the beginning of the game. There is nothing new in here, just a background image. We listen to the input of the player, and then we start the actual game. We show some text, and if some message is passed, we are showing that on top of here. And don't get fooled that this, in this case, this is a string, but this could easily be an object with multiple properties and multiple information. On game state, on game over, instead of restarting the game, we are launching the home state again. And we are telling it to refresh the game world. And we're telling it to keep the assets, the cage of the game, because we don't want to get rid of that, or we won't have any images to show, or they'll have to be loaded again, which is obviously not ideal. And we're passing in a message. That again, let me repeat it again, doesn't have to be a string, it can be an object with multiple properties with anything that you want.